All right, well, let's get started. Welcome everyone to our final session in the series of back to school webinars with Canva to help prepare teachers as they get ready for the start of the school year. We've saved the best for last, and in today's webinar, we're going to be taking you through how we can support the bread and butter of your classroom practice, teaching your lessons your way. As educators, we're always looking to innovate our classroom to help our students. It might be the resources that we use, the way in which we deliver them, or maybe how we can facilitate collaboration. Today, we're going to dive into a few of our favorite ways to do that, all in Canva. Before we jump into that, I'd love to introduce myself. My name is Jonathan, and I'm a K-12 educator here at Canva. I want to extend a big welcome to you all. We're also joined by the wonderful Canva for Education team, Lena, Millie, Paige, and Sarah, who will be answering any questions you may have. So feel free to pop those into the Q&A part of the Zoom if you'd like those answered. And now, as you might have been able to tell from my photo, I was actually a maths teacher in a past life. So shout out to any math teachers tuning in today. And I'm excited to be joined by two very special guests. They're both Canvassadors, amazing teachers in the classroom, and have presented at conferences all over the US. I can't wait to see what goodies they've got to share with us today. But you may know them better as the Merrills. I'll pass over to you, Joe and Kristin.
Hey, what's up, Jonathan? How's it going?
Hi, everybody.
You know what, Jonathan? That picture of you was absolutely incredible. I have to say, like, you look great there. And you look great now, but man, that picture, that's you in your element, bro. That was awesome.
We're super excited to be here. I'm not sure when everyone is actually starting school. We're 3 weeks in, so we're feeling that start of the school year vibe. I'm really excited to be able to talk about Canva and how it can help you, whether you've already started or are getting ready to start.
Yeah, and so like Kristin said, and like Jonathan had said, there's people on the chat to help support if you have any questions. But if you think of something later on down the road and you're like, oh, how do I do that? Please reach out to us on social media. We're at the Merrills EDU, 2 R's, 2 L's, because
there's 2 of us.
She hates it when I do that. But feel free to reach out to us. We'll be happy to support you guys too. But the Canva team is the best place to stop. I mean, they're so responsive.
Amazing. I'll just say that there's a lot of magic on that previous photo, but I want to talk through what we're going to do today. So we've got a jam-packed agenda, starting off with a bit of an overview of what is Canva for Education. Then we're going to take a look at some of the templates that you can find in our library. And then we've got a deep dive into how to create those lessons in Canva for your classroom, wrapping all that up with what's next for you all attending and how you can be a part of our community as well. So that's a lot, and I'm excited already. Speaking of sharing, just a reminder that we'll be sharing the recording to this webinar, as well as any of the links that are shared in the chat in a follow-up email as well, in case you wanted to revisit anything of the things that we covered today. I'd love to hear from all of you first, though. For anyone in this attending, how familiar are you with Canva? Feel free to pop your answers into the chat on a scale of 1 to 5, typing a 1 if you're a new user joining us, welcome. Or maybe a 5.
You know, one thing we always find on this, Jonathan, is that people always underscore themselves here. Mm-hmm. They always are like, oh yeah, I'm a 1 or a 2. Come on, guys, give yourselves credit. You're awesome.
I think, Joe and Chris, I think you guys would be off the scale. You guys would be like a 10 or something. You would just feel like
we learn something new every day. Every time I log into Canva, there's something new or something different that I don't know, which makes it so amazing.
Yeah.
But I think they should get an extra point just for being here tonight.
Absolutely, yeah. we're gonna do a curve scale. Right, you're a math teacher, right, Jonathan? So let's figure out the curve on that.
That's it. I'll do the the linear equation for.
You're over my head now. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's a different language sometimes.
Yeah.
I can see. I want to be a 5. I love that attitude. That's really positive. So I think, regardless of how familiar you are with Canva at the moment, we hope that you'll take something away from today, because we'll be showcasing a lot of different features for you to take back to your classroom. So let's jump into it. What is Canva for Education? Well, Canva for Education is your all-in-one visual suite, and how we communicate is constantly evolving. And here at Canva, we want to ensure teachers and students are equipped with the tools they need in order to do this in the most effective way possible. You might have used Canva in the past to make some engaging presentations for your classroom, or even posters to put up on the walls. But our rich visual suite has so much to offer. So whether it's collaborating on documents, editing videos, or even building websites, we've got you covered. We also want to celebrate some amazing milestones that you've helped us achieve. We're used by over 70 million students and teachers across the globe. But more importantly, we're 100% free for K-12 schools and districts from wherever you're listening in from today. If you'd like more info on signing up, we're just going to share an info about that in the chat. And so you can go ahead and follow through that. So why is Canva for Education free? Well, it's a part of Canva's two-step plan to first, build one of the world's most valuable companies, and two, to do the most good that we can through initiatives like supporting education and nonprofit programs. The reason why Canva for Education started back in 2019 was that we wanted to provide accessible technology for all students and teachers, regardless of their school finances, really empowering every educator and inspiring every learner. And we're passionate about teaching students the skills that they need. The world is constantly changing, but those core skills like communication, collaboration, and being creative will always be needed for them to solve the problems of tomorrow. Now, here's the first resource I want to share with you all. It's our Back to School Teacher Toolkit, which is designed by teachers for teachers. Packed full of amazing resources to help you get to know your students, start planning your classes, and create engaging lessons this year. Again, we've just shared a link to this in the chat, but remember, we'll include all of these in your follow-up email. Let's take a look at that education library that I talked about now. So again, whether you're looking for presentations, activities, or something else entirely, you'll find it all here. We've actually got more than 80,000 education-specific resources, but we know how creative teachers are. So there's also millions of other templates and things like that, which can be repurposed for the classroom too. I'm going to hand it over to the Merrills now, and they're going to talk through how they go about finding these templates and a few of their favorite ones. So take it away, guys.
So I want to start off by saying, if you haven't gone back to school yet and you haven't been using Canva over the summer, it's going to look a little bit different than when you were coming finishing school last year. And so we thought it was important to kind of point out where you can find some of these templates because, they may not be in the same spot as you were in last year.
I mean, I just like the search bar, but I mean, I'm just saying, like, it's. I think what's cool about Canva too is sometimes there are templates that might be designed for a particular niche, like even like a business or social media, that you can then find ways to use in your classroom as well. So I really appreciate just the variety that we have of templates that you can choose from. I am a big proponent. I saw in the chat that there were some people saying, I like using it myself, but I'm really nervous to use it with my students. And one thing that I would say to do is to start with a template, because students are also nervous to design on Canva, and it makes them a little bit more at ease when they can start with something and then just build off of that, change it. It's also really good when trying to teach to a standard or make sure that there's certain things in there. You can find a template that works, and then you can say, okay, you have to keep this, and this part of the template, but then you're free to edit and be creative as you want.
Yeah, and it's pretty easy to find these types of things. Did you say this? I'm sorry, I was trying to fix the back.
No, it's okay.
Okay, so if you look over on your Canva dashboard, you can click on templates, and then once you click on templates, you're going to see a whole list of things that come down. But if you click on templates with that caret that drops down, you're going to find that there's an education spot there. And then you can really narrow down your search. You can narrow it down by grade level. You can narrow it down by subject, or even like the resource type. So
I love subject. Because then I can see all the different types of grades, and sometimes your standards might be a little bit different than someone else, or you're looking to enrich a child or remediate, and so I go by subject.
I prefer resource type, actually.
Okay.
Because that way it gives me an idea. Like I know I can edit it, right? But this gives me an idea of like, okay, I'm looking for an infographic, right? So I want to make sure I narrow it down to that.
I'm a little more scattered, maybe. I don't know. All right, so the template library has definitely been revamped, and like I said, one of those things is just that you get in and there's always these new things. I like to search. That's just my preference. I like to put in keywords, and I find that the keywords that you put in really do make a difference, right? You can type in science, but then you could type in like biology and get two totally different things. And so I always tell people like to play around with the words that you search by, because sometimes you'll find really neat things. And I often find things that I'm not even looking for, and then I can star them and save them for later.
Well, that's a spoiler. I think we were going to talk about that later.
Okay,
oh
so
my goodness.
Talk about it. It's okay.
No, I'm just kidding. I think it was actually on this. So yeah, so there's lots of different types of resources that are available on there. And it doesn't just stop with ELA, right? Like if you're a math teacher, there's things that are on there for you. If you're looking into history, those are available. And so really all you got to do is get really good with your keywords, kind of narrow it down that way, and you'll be able to find something, I guarantee it. So yeah, all right, you want to talk about what some of the different examples that we can from the templates. So one of our favorite examples is this ELA example, and we love this for multiple reasons. The first reason is because as an educator, you can use this as a template right now by scanning that QR code. But not only would you be teaching your students about how they can go about writing a comic book, but then with the use of Canva for students, they can actually create their own comic books.
You could do it in history too.
Yeah,
I'm teaching history this year, so it's not all about the ELA. You could do this in, I think, in almost any subject area. But kids are visually intrigued by things, and so sometimes just it looking really nice and kind of in their world, you can trick them or kind of carrot them into doing something that maybe wouldn't be. There's also a lot of soft skills in here. I'm just looking at the template. They're designed really well to not just be a cool comic book, but to talk about the elements and what actually goes into that, which there's also a lot of just writing elements in there too.
Yeah, and I mean, for those of you guys that are new to Canva, which I know there's not too many, but you can edit any of these slides, right? So you can actually differentiate this to your own content really, really quickly and easily. It's just a matter of going in, saving this as a customized template, and then you can go in and edit it all. And it's really, really handy. So how about a math example?
Sure.
So looking at the math examples, we really like... There it is. We really like this particular template. This one's talking about understanding place value. When it comes to math, a lot of times people are like, how am I going to use Canva in math? And there are so many different ways that you can do it. This one, I felt like just did a really good job of explaining a difficult concept, right? So this would be more on the teacher end where you could go and you could edit these slides out. But I mean, I could also see you finding another template resource somewhere in there that will do word problems, right? Or something of that nature.
And I don't think every single template kids have to touch. You guys think of like this. Yeah. When I saw this, I instantly thought, ooh, like the kid that misses school that day, or the parents that want to help their child a little bit extra, right? So it could be something that you do whole group and then you just slide it into your LMS or your place where your parents can go. Or if your kids are on all the time and they're really familiar, you could throw it and have something, right? That's the beauty of the template, that you can use it exactly to the way that you feel the most comfortable teaching.
The other thing too, Kristin mentioned it 2 slides ago, but you can also favorite these, right? So let's say that you're looking for a particular resource and you happen to stumble across this place value resource and you're like, oh, I'm not teaching place value right now, but I know I'm going to in March. You can star that by clicking on it, and it's in the video, you can see that little star. If you click that star, that's going to save it to your favorites. You can always find your favorites on the left side panel when you scroll down below like apps and like elements and all that. You can find them down there, and then you'll be able to go in and then you can pull that back out for whenever you need it. This actually is available by scanning that QR code as well. So if you're interested in saving this for later, star it, scan that QR code, and then you'll be able to save it for later.
Thanks so much, guys. I'm a repeat culprit of losing all my designs, so that starring is definitely going to help me out. And personally, I'm really excited to see a math comic from your students. Maybe we can get like that.
We did that just for you.
Some of my other favorite superheroes there, we can chuck them in. So thanks so much, Joe and Kristin. And so we've talked a bit about the templates that we have available, but in this section, we're going to be doing a bit of a deep dive with all the different ways you can create lessons in Canva. And so one thing I really want to emphasize that was just talked about is that it's all about that customization. So, every class is different and every student is different. So naturally, you want to put the control of how Canva is used in the hands of teachers. So Canva lessons are a way in which you can share teaching materials, activities, and even give student feedback all in one place. So you can spend less time planning and more time teaching, which I'm sure we can get all on board with, delivering that entire learning experience to your students on Canva. So we see 3 main ways of using this. I'd really recommend just by looking at our ready to teach lessons to start off with, which includes content, learning outcomes, and activities for you to use. If you have some designs already made in Canva, then you can add those into a lesson you're about to teach. And finally, perhaps you've made lessons in other platforms. Even then, you can upload those to Canva and get the most out of our editor, elements, and graphics. Again, before we jump into that, I'm just curious to know, how familiar are you with Canva lessons? It's a pretty new feature that I've been learning a lot about. So pop your answers in the chat. Maybe you've used them with your class before, or maybe you've just heard of them. And if you haven't tried them yet, really excited to show you what we've got today.
The availability to upload their own resources, like maybe like PowerPoint or something like that, like you were just mentioning, that is a game changer, right? So if you have older resources, if you're new to Canva and you're looking to use some of these lessons, you can always pull in your own content and you can always edit them right there within the platform too. So
I'll say I remember the day that I was going on to look for something, and I don't know, maybe it was like, just kind of quietly put on there, or I missed the memo and I saw all of the resource and the lessons and the little tiles, and I like squealed. I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? Right. And so, and what I love is that there's constantly more, right? And so at first you may, regardless of what you teach or see, they may not exactly fit. There's not going to be something for every single day of the year, but there's so much more that comes. And what I love is being able to look at them, and even if I can't use every single piece, they inspire me on ways that I can use Canva with my kids and maybe, take a template and create it and stuff like that.
And when it comes to Canva lessons, I love how it keeps it all organized and there's a flow. So as the educator, it almost works like its own LMS, right? Like you can really go in there, you can pick and choose what activities you want to have pushed out, which I don't want to give too much because I think we're going to be going into a little bit more, but it's really, really powerful. So if you haven't checked it out, I know we're going to talk about it here, but you want to check it out.
This group is ready. They've heard, most of the people have heard of them. So I think this is going to be good.
There's a lot of spoilers coming from you, Joe. We won't give too much away, but we are about to dive into that. So let's get into it. As they said, no matter if you're a elementary, third grade teacher or high school science teacher, we've got you covered with more than 100 ready to teach curricular lessons, which you can use or adapt for your students. So that's enough of me talking to it. Let's actually jump into it. I really want to be intentional here. I've got a few different ones I want to showcase and look at the content that's actually inside there, just to get those ideas flowing of how you might be able to use these in your classroom. So to get started with the lessons, we've made it really easy from the homepage. You can see there's a range of lessons from different subjects for you to try out. And once I select those, I can actually see a preview of all the activities that are in there. This one's on opinion writing and has a presentation which I can use to deliver new content. And then it's got activities that students can complete on discovering their own voice. And how can we feed about classroom collaboration? So there's a whiteboard that allows students to share their opinions on a topic with their peers there. Here's another example. It's going to be a math lesson on my favorite topic, quotients and fractions. I can appreciate not everyone's on board with that. But again, in the preview, we can see there's a few different activities for them to complete. And so there's a presentation, there's that collaboration aspect. And funnily enough, there's actually a comic strip. So I'm definitely going to be checking out this one. So again, I just want to dive into what's actually in those lessons. I know my students always found, dividing fractions really difficult, and trying to find ways to explain that was also a challenge for me. I've tried those little tricks like keep, change, flip, which does work for a lot of students, but I found that they couldn't quite grasp an understanding of what was happening in the process, which is so important in a math lesson. So I love that there's all these different visuals, which help me present another perspective on what the division of a fraction actually represents. And also, we've included those pesky little word problem solving questions that seem to trip up students. Like it's the exact same question, but we just put it in a real life context. And for some reason, it just it becomes a lot more difficult. So trying to include those and a range of different questions in there is really valuable there. Again, here's another one of our English lessons on writing a thesis statement. And just to really highlight, when I click through, you can see there's all these different like learning objectives, definitions, and opportunities for classroom discussion, which you would just have in one of your normal lessons anyway. And so again, really adapting that for what you need. I don't know about you guys, but one thing my students always ask me is, sir, when are we going to use this stuff in real life? And so for this exact reason, I think they've made it perfectly for this. We've made these future skills lesson sets, which looks at those real life skills like financial literacy or critical thinking. And we've partnered with a lot of experts in the field, like NASA and Upschool. And I think this particular lesson here is looking at sustainability and how can we make eco-friendly choices, as well as having a positive impact in our community. And this one's really special. So it's a lesson written on understanding the rise of AI's influence. So really hot topic that people are talking about all the time now in classrooms. And so we've partnered with the New York Times there. And again, I just want to highlight that it has all these different activities like presentations and worksheets for your students to complete. And it's even got some extension tasks for those fast finishes too. Another way to create a lesson, so we've got those ready to teach templates, but another way is if you've got a lot of designs in Canva ready, then this is perfect for you, because after you've made your final touches to your design, you can actually go ahead and add it directly to your lesson. So you can add any sort of design. So these could be presentations you want students to read through or summarize. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to add something in where students can also edit and modify these designs. So right now it's a resource, but if I change that, so I'm going to make it solo work. And that means that students can complete the task and submit it to their teachers for feedback. So how's this going to help us in the classroom? I think all the ideas are probably flowing already, but we've talked about, saving you time, keeping all those materials in one place. Something else I want to spotlight is some of the inbuilt tools we have as well for improving accessibility. So it could be things like the visuals, whether it's like the color contrast, typography, or even alt text. And one thing I love is you can also record lessons. I think we sort of talked about that idea of students who are absent and need to catch up on materials, or if they need just some revision. It's really great that you can do all that within our editor and lessons features. I'm really keen to hear about these magazine covers that you've got though, Kristin.
Well, you were just talking about how, you've got all these great resources, right? But I know that in the chat we were watching as well. But how do we get the kids to do some of this stuff, right? And so lessons kind of bridges the gap there, right? So we have, our teacher content that we can push out. Then we've got lessons where we can assign the work to the kids. How do we get them going on some great ideas? And so Kristin had some really, I love this activity. You had a great activity here. So
okay, so this was an activity that used a template. And I thought it would be a really easy activity, but it turned out to be really challenging because anytime that you ask kids to demonstrate understanding through a different context, right? That there's no copying, there's no falling back on something they're used to doing. And so this is actually a summary of a novel, which I feel like we do a lot. And I wanted the kids to be able to choose the chapter that, we had read so many. And I just picked out, I think, 5 different templates because they don't have the design skills. This was a 4th grade class to really understand what I wanted. And I knew I wanted a heading and I wanted some words along the side because we're doing like main idea and details. So I picked the templates and then I went in and said, okay, well, we'll use what you know about main idea and summarization. And so what would your title be based on the chapter that you read? What would your images be based on the chapter you read? What were the main events on, and then put it in the format of a magazine, which is short and to the point, doesn't give too much away. It was hard, but it was really awesome. And to see the kids be able to use their design skills, there's a lot of like soft skills in here. They have to know how to layer, they have to know how to group things together. But to start with all the same templates and then to all design something different was nice for me as a teacher to see, because I think sometimes not everybody, but sometimes people think, oh, if I give them a template, that's like cheating. Like it's not their own work. And so none of these look the same. They all very much hit the mark, and it was really rewarding for the kids to see what they've created. Like I said, I did this in a reading class. I think you could do this. I'm going to do it in history this year, whether it be historical figures, time periods. I think there's some really cool things to integrate with like point of view and perspective of like who's writing and what you're trying to do. But again, it's cognitively really difficult, but skills wise, they really just need to know how to layer, add photographs and text. And so in that sense, that's something you could probably do right away in terms of design.
Because all of these, again, were templates. So yeah. All right. Now, in this example here, this is for my primary teachers. So if you are in the lower end of the elementary level, this activity is for you. I did this with 1st graders. And so this...
say that again.
I did this with 1st graders.
Yeah, 6-year-olds.
And so what I did here is I actually created this from scratch on Canva. We were learning about text features. And as you can imagine, that's a pretty difficult concept for a 6-year-old to grasp. And so what I did was I decided to, let's just make this on Canva and have the kids go in, and we're going to create a book. But they were also really into planets and space. So I'm like, let's make it fun. Let's make it relevant. So let's learn about planets. And then you create your own planet. But you've got to use all the text features that we had learned about in your book. And so they basically created a whole book just using this template. And you can see that at the bottom there, it's like a boldface words. It's got the timeline. It's got a place for headings. And so the kids would just go on, they would add their content into those different areas. And by the end, they had some really cool planets that they came up with. And what's not on here is that they actually came up with videos. Like they actually created a video so we could see what their planet would look like. And some of the planets were like Catco, right? It was a planet full of cats. And I'm sure I can't think of the other ones, but
well, while you're thinking, I wanted to say that, another thing when working with kids on Canva too is this idea that they're living in this digital space all the time. And there is still a place for pencil and paper, right? Like there's still a place for them to sit and think and log their ideas. There's a place for us as teachers to be able to look over what they're doing and make sure that they're ready to go onto that. And if anything, it helps not compound something to be really difficult. So if you're worried about using Canva and just jumping right in, something like this is a nice bridge too. I hate to use technology as a motivator. Like I want everyone to get there, but it does. And so being able to write out your thoughts and then be able to show what you have done is a great way then to get kids motivated and work quickly towards being able to have more time to design.
Yeah, and to be clear, the kids can do this either way. You can print this out after you create it on Canva, or you download it from me, whatever. And then they can go and they can use crayons and pencil, or they can just edit the template and they can add their content directly into Canva. So it's really up to you as the educator.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's so important to have those different modes of delivery. Like, I think pen and paper is one of those tried and true methods that we continue to use. And I think it's finding the right place to put technology where it actually benefits our students.
I was going to say Canva is all about the creativity, right? And so that is another kind of shoe-in for kids. And so if kids are creative and they want to make sure that they're creative in a comfortable way, maybe they draw pictures. Maybe you have other kids that are more comfortable on a computer. It just gives them outlets to do either. So you could do both.
Now, I got to ask, what's going on here? Because I am a bit of a gamer, but I didn't know that I could find an educational reason to incorporate that in my classroom, apart from, Friday lunchtimes or something.
Yeah, so this actually, it's just so funny that we're bringing this up now, because I asked my students when they came back to school this year, I said, what was one of your favorite activities that we did on Canva? And this one came up. So we had the kids still do their traditional narrative writing like they always would. Yep. They're still writing on paper and pencil. They're still coming up with the story elements and all that. But at the end, what I had them do is I had them make it in a language that spoke to what they understand. So I had them come up with a video game cover that could be used for their story. So basically what they did here was they used magic media to generate images and then add text box to create what could be a video game cover. And I gotta say, Jonathan, some of these look like they could be sold at Target. They were so good. I feel like these guys are definitely going to have something to sell gamers, down the line. And it was a really quick and easy activity. Again, this was with 6 and 7-year-olds, so they can do it. It's just a matter of getting a prompt down and then learning a little bit about layering. But this was a lot of fun for the kids.
I think you gave them like the little image on the bottom and the E for everyone. And you gave them a few things just to make sure they had it looking authentic and they didn't have to spend a lot of time editing that kind of aspect to it.
If you look, there's in the template, you'll see there's a Nintendo Switch icon, and then there's also the E for everyone. And I told the kids that, like, look, if you hide that, that's going to be against the law. Like, you have to make sure that's on the cover. And so that taught them the layers, right? So they have to know, okay, well, this picture has to be behind those two things. And so that template actually has those two elements locked. So that way they should always be together, so they can't delete them, but the kids still have to go in and layer correctly.
And it's also really great too, I think, kids on any platform I find that I introduce my middle schoolers to, they want the AI. Like they just think that's what they want, even if they really don't. And so it's a great way to introduce and to teach how to prompt AI and the words to use. And the better that you can talk about what you're looking for and the more descriptive you can be, the better pictures you get. And so there's like almost like a mini lesson within the lesson.
Yeah, I think it's so great that they can get hands-on with some of these tools. So I think it's a really great starting way just to get them prompting, as you mentioned, using something like magic media to generate some of those images. I got to ask though, like, I think one question I always get when I see, a new tool or new piece of technology, like, how long does it take students to, firstly learn how to do something like this, but then actually go through and follow the activity? Because I feel like there's always so many layers. It's like, got to learn the tool, but then I still got to learn how to actually use it properly. How long does something like this take, do you reckon?
I'm so glad you asked that.
I mean, I think it depends on when you introduce your kids, right? So I did an activity with my students who had never, we don't even know how to log in computers. They're very tech naive. This year in Canva, it wasn't this one. It was a little bit more integrated. And I wanted to say, once I got them logged in and showed them how to work, maybe 5 minutes to learn the tools of like text and colors and fonts. And and they took off. And so when you're doing an activity with your kids at the beginning of the year, you're going to want to create activities that teach them different tools. So that first activity I did with them taught them how to put a background up and taught them how to do text, right? And then the next time I might teach them something that has text, background, photo. And then the next time I might do something that has text, background, photo. And so you're like building on those skills with them. And then the more that you teach them and practice, then by the end of the year, you can go into probably the next example we're going to show, and it runs really quickly, right? Now, this one probably wouldn't take that long.
No, I'm sorry. What did you say you teach first?
I teach text background.
That's the wrong way. Don't do that.
Okay.
Background text. Do that.
No, it doesn't matter. Those are two skills that I taught.
No, I'm just giving you a hard time. I always start with the background first, just because it's easier for the kids to learn that. And it's a really important way to start layering. It's important that the kids understand that. And then Kristin's right. The text is super important. Even if you're not really using it for, an academic purpose in the beginning, add that text on there, getting them changing the font, changing the colors. Those are all those soft skills that Kristin had mentioned that can really help them in activities like this. And so this, again, is just the layering, and it's just adding the text boxes. So I think, to be honest, when I did this with the kids, and again, this was 6 and 7 year olds, I think it took them, they were being picky. I think it was about 25 to 30 minutes, to be honest, for them to do it. But again, I think they probably could have done it in way less time if they weren't trying to outdo the person who just did theirs. So there's a little bit of competition.
They love those AI prompts too. They just want to get better and better. They just keep going.
Love a bit of healthy competition. That's awesome. And there's one more resource you've got for us. These are actually printed, are they? They look really awesome.
Yeah, okay, so I don't usually print my stuff off Canva. Usually we share it on another platform or a board where everyone can see it. But when you're talking about like using Canva with your students, this was an end of the year activity, right? So this is something that I did with my fourth graders the last month of school. We were doing a huge like floors lava unit. And we had all these different elements built in along that theme. And so this was a research project, which is so funny. It was like text features. And in fourth grade, it's like one of those standards where they have to apply it. It's not just like identifying them. And so we did research on volcanoes, and then the kids had to decide like, okay, am I going to do like how it forms? Am I going to do the types of a volcano? Am I going to do whatever? And then that led them to the kind of text structure that their graphic would be. And then Canva has so many amazing infographics. The kids got to go in, pick them, and then they already had the skills of changing boxes, changing colors, adding things, putting in clip art. And so they just really liked them so much, they asked me to print them. And so for this one I did, and then that was back when we were using Flip, and they had shared them all. And so I printed them as like a souvenir because they were so proud of them. But they looked really cool.
But I think you could also, Canva's got built-in QR codes too. So if you did find a spot, like let's say in a piece of text that maybe was hyperlinked, maybe you could link a QR code on the back of it, right? Or maybe you could have it go to a resource. Maybe they edit this in Canva and then they share that as the public link, and that becomes a QR code. So when they have this, now they have the printed version and the digital version.
Or maybe you make the bookmark and you put on the back QR codes to different links and resources based on the novel you're reading or the research that you're studying, or, right? There's so many different ways that you can use the templates to meet the needs of what your purpose is.
I love just seeing your ideas just bounce off each other. It's just seeing it. I think that idea where we can see and decide how we want to share is really important. I think the posters and the physical parts, like I love doing that in my classroom, because I think, when students walk in, they get to see, what other students are doing, or what's something that they could potentially make themselves. And then the digital aspect, we had all these like community newsletters and things like that would go out to parents. And so it's like great for them to also appreciate what students are making in their classrooms. The last way you can make lessons, we sort of touched on, is making a Canva lesson with an existing resources that you've got. So I'm sure you've got plenty out there, and it's really easy just to upload your own resources or designs. And you can see this is kind of what it looks like for a student as they're going through that lesson. So it's really sequential. They can see, where they're up to and what's coming up next. So they can access any of those at any time. It's also really easy to upload resources. So, you can go ahead and actually, this is one of your resources, I think.
I was going to say, it's one of Kristin. Yeah.
Yeah. I just think this is like I just did a training at my school on Canva and had lots of new users. And the first thing I showed them was, hey, do you know you can like upload a PDF or something you already have? And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah, because sometimes we don't need to start from scratch. Sometimes we have to use certain things and we don't have that flexibility. But what, this is a primary example. They're doing like homophones and it's a game, right? And I said, well, what if you have students that already know these words and you want to challenge them? You could just upload the file and duplicate the page and change the words. Or maybe you just want more cards in the game because it's not going to take them that long to play. Or you want to add 4 players to the game instead of 2, right? And so how easy it is to just upload a PDF. I did it just the other day for something that I found and the resource was perfect. I just wanted to add in 1 sentence. It was like a dialogue to kind of match my standards a little bit better because it's like a role-playing thing. And I just uploaded the whole PDF, had all my text boxes. I just clicked the one that I needed. I changed that 1 sentence and I was able to print it and save it. And so sometimes when we have certain resources that we find, they're like almost what we want, or they're things we've had for so long that just maybe are a little outdated and we want to, refresh them. That file upload is really, really, really good to have in your back pocket.
And it's not, I mean, a lot of times people see this and they're like, how long does that take? It's fast. It does it within a couple of seconds.
I mean, it's done. And then you can just rename it. Then you have it. Now you have something digital that maybe you only had on paper and you can share it with somebody else. You can share it with your team. I think that's a really big part of Canva too, is the collaboration feature and that aspect to design and create and share and kind of lessen the load for each other is big for me.
Love it. And so all of those features that you talked about, so uploading and editing those PDFs, you can also do directly into a lesson as well. So this is what it looks like from a teacher perspective, where, I can add my existing designs, but I can also upload those worksheets or any other resources directly to there.
Which is just so amazing, like this hybrid of what Canva's designed and how great it is, and then what my district or my school needs to use and how they can like merge and be exactly what our kids need and what we're supposed to teach.
And I think it takes time too, like as teachers, we have to give ourselves the space to be able to learn and play with them. But also learn from our students. I think, going into something as, it's really cool to hear all of you guys sharing that, you may not feel like you know everything there is. And I think our students discover things that teach us all the time as well, which is fantastic. Now we've got a sneak peek at some of the new features we've launched recently in lessons. And we've gotten a lot of feedback. And so one of the things that teachers have really been wanting is tracking student progress. And it's always handy to see, if there are students who are needing more support or potentially extension activities to develop their skills. So that's something that we've incorporated in there to help you run lessons in your classroom. Another shared experience I hear is that challenge of how students receive feedback. So in Canva lessons, you can actually drop comments directly into the activities once they've submitted so they can review it. And I just want to note, it's really important that only that student can see the feedback you've left. And so you can easily have that sort of back and forth discussion and give students a voice potentially, if they're not wanting to raise their hand and they may get self-conscious about that. But I think it's a really safe space for them to share and develop their ideas. And again, you can check the progress from the dashboard or receive notifications when they've submitted. So you can make sure you get that feedback to them in a timely manner. And I mentioned those accessibility features earlier, but again, just to say that it can be really time consuming to do a lot of these manually. So with our tools, you can do things like suggest alt text, translate content, and even create those automated captions for your videos from our editor.
So many good things like, the translation to me is such a big deal. Being able to make things accessible for kids. Especially when they come in and they maybe don't know the language and you want to be able to connect and make them feel included. And then the captions, like that's so silly, but that's so this digital world of children, right? And so some of them will just choose to watch the captions because that's how they watch their social media and that's just their familiar space. And so to be able to provide that and then be able to provide it for, people who need it, like the beautiful thing about accessibility is that it's meant to be geared towards a certain type of learner, but like anyone can benefit from it, right? It helps everybody.
Our son will sit and watch TV with the captions on, and he has no problem hearing it. And I say to him, well, why do you do that? And he goes, I can just follow it better. And so, I mean, it works for everybody, right? And so these accessibility features, we really appreciate that are right there in Canva, and they're so simple to find and so simple to use. So thank you to all your Canva team for dropping those in there. We appreciate it. We did want to make sure that we left you guys with a whole plethora of things that you can go to. And this is one of our most popular blog posts. We wanted to make sure that we got it to you guys. This is 20 different ways that students can use Canva. And it's got 20 different ideas there. You can find the templates for a lot of those activities right there in that blog post. We also have some accompanying blog posts that go along with that. We've got one that's 10 ways that teachers can use it. So that one's going to be close on line with that blog post. And then we've got a few more blog posts too that go into things like the Canva AI. And if you want to advance that slide, John, there you go. Yeah, it's got some of the magic features and how to use the AI within the platform. So again, if you're interested in learning more about some of those more level up skills, you can scan that QR code. It's going to take you right to our blog, and then you can find those on our blog.
Yeah, and just, it has videos, it has text, it has templates. So whatever level you put in at the beginning in the chat, there should be something there that hopefully will inspire you or help you get started.
So much to take away from that. And I think, it's always about finding something that you can use, because it's always challenging to find something that's right and perfect for your classroom. And so just getting some of these ideas and then we can modify them as we need to, I think is really awesome. As I mentioned, this is unfortunately our last session in our webinar for back to school. It's been really great to have you all along. If you did miss any of our other sessions, they'll be live on our YouTube channel shortly. So what's next for everyone? Well, we hope you've been able to take away something from today's webinar on how to use Canva with your students. We'd love for you to take a moment to connect with us and see how else Canva can support you in the classroom. So no matter where you are in the world, you're welcome to join our Facebook community where teachers share resources, ideas, and our managers update you with the latest and greatest from Canva. You can follow us on X where we spotlight teacher use cases and what's happening in classrooms throughout the school year. And actually all of our educator resources can be found at this site. So you've got like tutorials, playbooks, and resources as well for your students to use. And finally, something that has just recently launched, I'm really excited to share, is our Teacher Essentials course. So if you're wanting to be an official Canvas certified teacher, then you can check out the link that was just shared. So I just want to wrap up and I want to say a big, big thank you to the Merrills for showing us some practical ways that we can get ready for back to school this year. And we hope you've taken away just something from today's webinar that you were able to share with your students. Just a reminder as well that at the conclusion of this webinar, you'll be prompted to respond to a survey where you'll be receiving that certificate recognizing the time you spent here today. And thanks again for everyone for joining us. And I look forward to seeing all your designs that you're making in our community on socials.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. We're so
Yes,
excited.
Jonathan, thank you so much. This has been amazing. We really appreciate everybody hanging out with us, whether it's the morning for you or whether it's the evening. This has been an absolute blast, and we hope we can do it again sometime.
Yeah.